Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi KIDDUSHIN DAF Yud Beis. So we got up to the wide lines. So we're holding at the first wide line on the Amid at the two dots. Ubeisil Oimrim Beperuta. So we're back to the Mishnah once again, where we learned that one can be Mekadesh and Isha using Kesef. How much Kesef? How much money is needed? According to Beis Shammai, you need a dinar, either a coin called dinar or shava dinar, an item with equivalent value. Ubeisil Oimrim Bepruta. You don't need more than a pruta, which apparently was the coin of lowest value at the time, so either an actual pruta coin or something which has the value of a pruta. Here comes an interesting machlokes. Sava Rav Yosef Lemeimer. Rav Yosef figured like this: pruta kolduhu. When we speak about a pruta, it's really a fluctuating entity. You know, in the time of the Gemara, a coin's value was dependent upon its mass, its size, because its value was an accurate reflection of its actual material. It was made of gold or silver, and whatever amount of precious metal there was in that coin, that's how much value the coin had. So, as Rashi explains, throughout the generations, it would fluctuate in value because it would fluctuate in size and in weight and in quantity. Says Rav Yosef, how much do you need to be Mekadesh and Isha? Well, use your local peruta, whatever it is today. And that's what you use. So it's not really a set, permanent value. It's a fluctuating entity. It's the pruta as it is today, for whatever it's worth. Abaye disagrees. No. The pruta value is non-negotiable. Amarle Abaye. V'ha'alokatani. But doesn't the Mishnah explain on this? Kama hi pruta. How much is a pruta? What value does a pruta have? How much is it worth? Echad mishmoina b'isar italki. It's an eighth of an Italian isar, a different type of coin. An eighth of that is a pruta. Apparently, there's a set value to it. Perhaps you'll say, true, the Mishnah does give us an accurate value for the pruta, but that was simply a reflection of the pruta's worth at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu's, the daughter of Moshe Rabbeinu, his generation. That's what it was worth. But it's not committal for all time. But nowadays, whatever value it has, meaning whatever today's pruta is worth, that's what you use. Perhaps that's what you'll say. It can't be. Why? Because when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, Omar, he told us that a pruta, even nowadays, has to be an accurate reflection of the pruta of yesteryear. He said like this: Kiyos Rav Dimi Omar, Shir Rabbi Simai b'Dairei. There was a story during Rabbi Simai's lifetime. A fellow was Mekadesh and Isha with a pruta. He went as cheap as he can get. He actually used a pruta. And he sat down to evaluate, to appraise the value of that pruta. Kama hi pruta. Echad mishmoine b'isar italki. And he determined, he concluded that a pruta, in order to be an effective KIDDUSHIN, needs to be that same value, an eighth of an isar. And this fellow, who used the pruta which happened to be worth less, because it had been resized and it was worth less than an eighth of an isar, that KIDDUSHIN is valueless, is worthless. He was mevatel that KIDDUSHIN. He actually was mevatel a KIDDUSHIN because it was under the minimum value. And the same we have with Ravin, V'chi Asur Ravin. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, he told us, Amar, he said that Rabbi Distoi, Rabbi Yanai, Rabbi Yoshe, all three of them, Shiaru, they determined, they appraised, Kama Havi Pruta, how much is a pruta meant to be? Echad Mishisha B'Yisr Talki, 1/6 of an Isser. Now we seem to have some sort of discrepancy here. Is it an eighth of an Isser, or is an Isser comprised of 6 prutos? We'll discuss that later. Because actually the Isser itself sometimes fluctuate. But ultimately there was a set value to a pruta. You can't just use your local, pruta, the lowest value coin in circulation today. It has to contain the same value as in the time of the B'der Shal Moshe, in the time of the way the Mishnah describes it. So in any case, Abai disagrees with Rabbi Yosef, who says it's a fluctuating entity. No, it has a set, a determined value. Less than that is worthless, as far as we're concerned. I will Rabbi Yosef responds to Abai. If that's the case, Hanun Tanina. Take a look at a brisa in Toras Kohanim in Vayikra that we learned as follows. So this fellow did me'ilah. He committed me'ilah, which basically means he misappropriated Hegdish property. Barely, a pruta worth. Just a drop. And what happens? He has to bring a carbon which is worth, a carbon asham me'ilah is worth 2 kesef, 2 sela. The kesef shkolim, the pasuk says. Look at the consequence of just taking a pruta, a small amount. Sevech hashev, go calculate. Take a look. Kama prutais b'shnei slime. The carbon that he brings is worth 2 sela. Look how many prutais can go into 2 sela. Look how much more he has to bring now. He enjoyed a pruta and he has to pay back more than 2,000 times as much as he took. Yoser mal paim. You can fit more than 2,000 prutos into 2 sela. Now, says Rav Yosef, let's take a close look at these numbers. If in fact you're correct, if in fact the Isser represents 8 prutos, right? That's the way it is. 8 prutos equal an Isser. So according to that, 2 sela will not end up getting you more than 1,536 prutos. Hashta alpaim lehavyan. Look, it doesn't even get to 2,000. Yasher ma'alpaim kekorilu. The Brisa refers to it as more than 2,000. Now, how do we get to 1536? So Rashi explains like this. Rashi here is around halfway down the Amud. Alpha v'chamesh mea otlosan v'shita havyan. He says like this: Shasela dala dinarin. Each cell has 4 dinar. But dinar chav dal disarim. Come on, a dinar is 24 yisar. V'i isar shmeina prutis loilam. If an isar is always 8 prutis, so how much per dinar? 192, right? Nimtzu kuf tzadek beis prutis per dinar. Right? Because an isar is 8. There are 24 isarim, so it's 24 times 8, and that gets you 196. Vashmoina dinar. Shebeshtei seloim. Now, 2 sela have 2 times 4 dinar, so it's 8 dinar times 192. Olam kol echad mosayim prutis chaser shmoiner elef v'taklav. So 8 times 192, 1,536. So that was his kasha. According to your formula, that it's always going to be 8 pruta per isar, so in 2 sela you barely have 1,500, 1,536. Why does the Brisa speak about over 2,000? Amar lehu hahu saba. So this elder scholar responded to them, Anana taninala. Actually, I learned and taught this Brisa as well, but with a slightly different version. Instead of more than 2,000, the Brisa is merely saying that it's close to 2,000. Karav al-Alpayim. Well, safe. Ultimately, it's only 1536. Alpha v'chamesh me'at losim v'shita hudahavyan. Why do you even mention something about 2,000? Well, kiva denaf kalumi palga, because once it's past the halfway point between 1,000 and 2,000, it's past 1,500. Karav al-Alpayim karilai, we already refer to it as close to 2,000, but ultimately it's 1536. So that's the answer to Rav Yosef's kash. Really, A pruta has a set value. It's always going to be have that same worth, which is 8 per Isser. Now, apparently, an Isser was more of a sort of a stable entity. It was like a point of reference to the prutas. The prutas were made of copper. Issarim apparently were made of silver. In any case, 8 per Isser. And even nowadays, if it so happens to be the pruta was downsized or resized or, has less metal in it, it cannot be used unless it meets that threshold. You have to have enough to reach the value, which is equivalent to the pruta value, which is described here as being 1/8 of an Isser Ha'italki. Now, by the way, the Rishonim, the Rambam, do give us a very accurate depiction of the value of the pruta. The Rambam explains something to do with darham and some size of a barley, and it's documented. We know exactly how much we're meant to use, because nowadays we don't have a pruta to use. And those aren't in our circulation. So, but we do know we have the actual value, and we try to get a ring which is worth at least that much. In fact, the Mesader KIDDUSHIN typically picks up the ring and shows it to the Edom, and he confirms with them, well, it's a Shabbat Pruta, and they usually nod their heads in agreement, and they proceed with the KIDDUSHIN. Interesting, Shiloh, on this topic. By the way, can we use a coin today? Why do we opt for rings? Why not just plain coins? That's a big tumult in the Mefarshim, the big machlekes between the Chasam Sofer, who says actually we could use a coin even nowadays. You see, why is it nowadays different? Because nowadays our coins are typically not made of pure precious metal, and the value of our coin is not really a true reflection of its content, of its metallic content. Rather, they have established set values established by the government, right? A quarter is a quarter of a dollar, not because of its actual value, but that's the way it's been set down by the authorities, and we accept it and we deal with it as though it's a quarter of a dollar in value. So the question is, can we use those for Kiddushin? The Chasam Sofer maintains you can. Dina de Malchusa Dina, we accept it as such, we treat it as such, it has that value in our eyes, so it's treated as an item of value. It's considered kesef, not shava kesef, it's called kesef. Whereas the Enigentur disagrees. He maintains that it only held true in the time of the Chachamim, when coins were valued relative to their actual metal, precious metal content, and that is called kesef. Otherwise, it's called merely shava kesef, and that's why we use today we're machmer to use dafka a ring to avoid this whole issue. And once we use a ring, we're running into the Indian of shava kesef. As long as it has the value, the proper value, then you're okay. By the way, Tosfos, a couple of days ago, talking about rings, he says that it is our minhag to use a ring without a stone, without no ornament on it, and the reason is because otherwise you might run into the question of shuma, right? There was a whole discussion the other day about something whose value is not really known, whether it can be used without appraising it beforehand. So he brings over here on Daf Tes Amud Aleph, it's Divrei Maschal B'Hilchasa. He says, I just read the Lashon inside. He says, Ulefichach nohagu ha'olam l'kadesh b'tabas she'ein ba'even, to avoid the issue of shuma. Interesting. Okay, let's move on. So we use a pruta. Question: is a pruta a set, something with a set, determined, unfluctuating value? According to Abaya, yes. So we can't just use any pruta. It must meet. It must have the same worth as described in the Mishnah. Echad mishmoin of Iser Italki, where Rabbi Yosef says, no, pruta is a pruta is a pruta. Whatever there is today, your pruta, that's good for Kiddushin. Gufa. Let's go back and review the halacha we learned. Kiyasar Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi came and he told us a story. Amar, Shi'er Rabbi Simoi b'doiroi, kama hi pruta. Rabbi Simoi determined a pruta has to be echad mishmoin b'isir italki and eighth of an isr. V'chi asar Rav, and Amar, when he came, he said a little different. Shi'er Rabbi Distai, Rabbi Yanai, Rabbi Yeshia. Kami, pruta echad mishisha b'isar italki, a sixth of an isar. What's the machlekes about? A sixth, an eighth. Omli abayler of dimi. So he was the first one, right? He said an eighth of an isser. Nema, shall we suggest that you yourself, V'Ravin and the other Shita Ravin, Replukta, Dani Tanoikam Eflegisu, are having the same machlekes contained in the following brayso between Tanakama and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel as to the exact value of a pruta. Is it a sixth of an isser, or 8 of them are used to purchase an isser? The Sanya pruta she'amr chachamim. What is the value of a pruta? Echad mishmayna b'isar italki. Just as we have in our Mishnah, 1/8 of an Isar Italki. And to get a more exact picture of the value of the pruta, the Brisa continues, sort of breaking it down, starting from the dinner all the way to the pruta, which will give us a total of 192 prutas per dinar, as we mentioned before. Sheish ma'o kesef, six silver ma'is comprise a dinar. So a dinar can be broken down to 6 ma'is. A ma'a can be exchanged for shnei 2 punyoinen. Each punyoin, shnei isarin. Each isar can be broken down to shnei musmisim. Mismis, every mismis coin can be exchanged for shnei 2 kun terun kin. Okay? Each kun terunk can be exchanged for shtei prutas. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Nimtza pruta echas mishmoina b'isar italki. So it turns out that each isar can be switched for 8 prutas. Okay? So ultimately the dinar has 192 dinar. Right? If you multiply everything, it ends up being 192 prutas per dinar. And if there are 24, Rashi says there were 24 isarim in a dinar, as we just explained. Right? So 24 isarim in a dinar and 192 prutas in a dinar. So that divides into 8 prutas per isar. Tanakam holds a pruta is an eighth of an isar. Good. According to Ram Shimon Gamliel, a pruta was a sixth of an isar. He says like this, Omer. He works with some other coins. He says like this. We'll start from the top. A dinar, that's the grand coin. That can be switched for 6 ma'is, right? So far so good, like Tanakama. But then he goes into a different system. Each ma'a is worth 3 hadrisin. Seems like it was a different, arrangement. Shloisha hadrisin lama. Each hadris had 2 hintzin. Shnei hintzin lahadris per each hadris. Now each hint was 2 shamnin. Shnei shamnin coins lanetz to each netz. And finally, how many prutas per shamnin? Beis prutas l'shamnin. So, according to him, you're going to have like this. Nimtza pruta achas mishisha be'isar hitalki. You're going to have only 6 prutas per isar hitalki. Why? So Rashi explains, because according to him, you're still going to have the same amount of isarim in the dinar. We said before that a dinar contains 24 isarim. Right? But how many prutas are there in a dinar? So go through the numbers. You have, let's see Rashi here. So it's around 15, 18 lines from the bottom. He says like this. Nimtzeis pruta achas echad mishisha. Okay, so Rashi will take us through the whole journey here. How we get to that conclusion. So he's agreeing to the Tanakama. In terms of the amount of isarim in a dinar, it's still the same amount, 24 as before. But he disagrees on one account. He says prutas are worth a bit more than the Tanakama maintains they're worth. Tanakama maintains that prutas are very small. He says they're a bit bigger. around 25% bigger. Shehadinar sheish ma. So he agrees on the first level. A dinar has 6 ma'is. But then he sort of goes on a different track. V'ama gimel hadresim. Each ma is 3 hadresim. Harei. So that's a total of yud ches hadresim l'dinar. 18 hadresim per dinar. Now each hadras is 2 hintzen, right? So 18 hadresim turns into 36 hintzen. V'hein shloishim b'sheish hintzen. Now each hanetz is 2 shamin, right? So 36 turns into 72 shamainin, right? V'heim shivim b'shnayim shamainin. And each shamin is 2 prutos, right? So you get 72 times 2, 144. V'heim kuf mem dal prutos. And there you go. That's your whole total for the dinar. Instead of 192, as the Tanakama maintained, it's 144. But he agrees as to the number of isers in a dinar, 24. So you have much less to divide into 24. You're taking, instead of 192 and dividing it by 24, giving you 8 per iser. Here it's taking 144 and dividing into 24, so it's 6 per. Right? Chalkim l'chavdal chalakim timcha shisha b'chal chelik. Harisheish prutas li'isar shu echad m'chavdal b'dinar. So 6 prutas per iser, which an iser is 1/24 of a dinar. Okay, so it's a clear machlekes as to the value of a pruta needed for monetary transactions, including kedusha isha. So it's a clear machlekes here. How big is a pruta? How much copper does it have? Does it take 8 to buy an iser or only 6? So Abaye made reference to this machlekes and suggested perhaps you and Rav Dimi, and Ravin, who also made this presentation 6 or 8, seem to be having the same machlekes as the Tanaim in this brisa, which is a bit hard to understand because typically Amoraim and Tanaim don't have identical machlekes. So Rav Dimi's response was no. We're not having the same discussion as this brisa. Okay, so let's see the Gemara again. Lema. Okay, continues the Gemara. Lema demar amar ketana kama. So Abaye was addressing Rav Dimi, who had spoken about the pruta being 8 to an iser. Well, you elected Tanakama, the Maramot Ketanakama, who says the same thing. The Ravin, who maintained it was 6 per iser, the Amar, Kiravan Shim Gamliel, who says it's 6 per. Is that the case? Amalei, he responded no. Bain Lididi, Bain Ravin, whether me or whether it's Ravin, I'll leave it Tanakama. We're both following Tanakama, who maintains that it's 8 per iser, which corresponds to our Mishnah. And Kiddushin, a pruta is an 1/8 of an iser. Well, Ikash, there's no disagreement at all. There's no question here. There's a very simple solution. The iser coin would sometimes go up and down in value, for whatever reason, whether due to its silver content or whatever it is. So the size of the actual pruta has to remain stationary, but its value relative to the iser, meaning how much does it take to buy an iser, that can change sometimes because of the iser's fluctuation. Like Hashir, Hadi Ikor Isuri. I was speaking about needing 8 prutas to purchase an iser. That's because the isurim were high in value at the time. Hadi Zul Isuri, when he spoke about needing merely 6 prutas for the iser, we're speaking that the iser went down in value. The ikor isuri, when I speak about the iser being on a high, kum esrim v'arba bezuzah. That's when 24 isers made a zuz. So in that case, the 192 prutos that comprise a dinar, when split into 24 for the 24 isarim, get you 8 prutos per isar. Hadazoil, he was speaking where the isar went down in value, was devalued slightly, in which case kumt lassen v'trein bezuzah. It took 32 isars to make a zuz, in which case you need less prutos to buy that isar, because the same 192 prutos per dinar, that stays the same. That's a set value. As we say over and over again, according to this shita, it's Abaye's shita, that a pruta's value is non-negotiable. It was just the isser that would sometimes go up and down. And that's how you end up with only needing 6 prutas per isser. But ultimately, in terms of the value of a pruta, it remains the same. Okay. So bottom line, you mekadesh an isha with a pruta. Which pruta? Rabbi Yosef says, your local pruta, for whatever it's worth. Abaye says, no. There's a reason why the Mishnah gives us that formula. A pruta is meant to be an eighth of an isser, meaning it takes 8 prutas to purchase, or to, upgrade to an isser. And it's based on the 192 prutas per dinar formula, assuming that the dinar is comprised of 24 isers. So it's 8 per isser. And of course, if it turns out that the isser went down in value, then you need less prutas to purchase the isser. But ultimately, the isser, the pruta remains the same. And even nowadays, you must ensure that your pruta, or whatever money you're using, has to have the same value. Has to contain the same shavius, the same worth, as that specific isser. That specific pruta discussed over here. Okay, continues the Gemara. A brand new sugya. Actually, slightly related. Amar Shmuel, Kitcha B'Tmara. He was Mekadesh his Isha with a date, which is not worth a pruta locally. Afilu Omer de Kur Tamaram B'Dinar. Even if it so happens to be that the dates here are very cheap, you can get a huge amount, a kur, 30 sa, a huge amount of dates for merely a dinar, which basically means each fruit is virtually worthless. Mikudeshes. We treat her as a mikudeshes. Why? Chayshin, I'm concerned. Shema shavapruta b'madai. Maybe Madai, way out in the country of Madai, where they don't have many dates, but they have lots of money. So the pruta, being so the tamara, because it's so scarce in Madai, is very high in value, is worth a pruta. And therefore, because of that concern, misafik, out of uncertainty, we say perhaps she's mekudeshes. We can't just let her go without a get. And if somebody else comes in and is mekadesha right now, after this first person, we don't know what's going on. Perhaps the first person is married to her. So she wants to stay on with Shimon, she must get a get from Reuven. Now, interesting point that the Tosis Rihazakin, you'll notice on the left side of the Gemara, there's a Rishon called Tosis Rihazakin. He has an interesting discussion. He starts with a suggestion that perhaps Shmuel meant to say that we're not sure. Maybe in Madai it's worth more. And let's say we do know. Let's say we know for a fact that in Madai they have no dates, they have lots of money, and they'll pay you, the world for a date. If we know that for sure, then perhaps it's a valid KIDDUSHIN. It is a KIDDUSHIN because it has value elsewhere. But then he says no. He says, that's not what the Gemara meant to say. He says because the suffix of the Gemara is that, even if we know that it's worth more elsewhere, does that affect its status here? That's the question. When Shmuel says Chayshin and Shem Shava Pruta b'Madai, it's not just because we're not sure, even if we know for a fact that it's worth more elsewhere. But that's the question. Do we work based on the local value, in which case it's not worth anything, or do we reckon with the fact that it's worth more elsewhere? That's the suffix. And he says an interesting thing, it only works by something like a date, which can theoretically be brought to that location without spoiling. So the thinking here is, the svar is that perhaps she'll somehow end up in that location, in which case her fruit will be worth money. We'll have the shavius of a shava pruta. But something which can't really survive the trip wouldn't really be up for consideration. And certainly it's not a kiddushin. Okay, so back to Shmuel. In Mekadosh with it tomorrow. There's always that chance that it might be worth more elsewhere, and therefore there's a suffix kiddushin. Chashinan Shem Shava Pruta Madai. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? How does that work with our Mishnah? The Mishnah clearly teaches us that in order for it to qualify, it has to be worth a pruta, not a date which is not worth much. Like Kasha, the answer is like this: Haba kedusha vadai. If you want it to be a vadai kedushin, certainly a kedushin, then you need a pruta. Haba kedusha safek. Shmuel was speaking about a safek. He's not saying it's a kedushin without a doubt. We're not sure, like we explained in the name of the Taisvis here. Perhaps we reckon with its value elsewhere. Perhaps we don't. So it's a suffix. We have to treat it as such and give a get when needed, etc. If you want it to be a kedushin without a doubt, make sure that it has a pruta in this mokim over here. Continues the Gemara. How gavra, there was this fellow, the Agdish bezavda the urdi. He was Mekadosh and Isha. Rashi says, Aguda shel muchen, a bundle of shmatas, rags, or some sort of materials, which wasn't really worth much. Yos Rav Simi Barachia kamed Rav. So he's sitting in front of Rav, and he was looking into this material. He was trying to appraise it and figure out its value. I ispa shava pruta in, if it has the proper value, the minimum pruta value, then the kiddushin flies. Eloi, otherwise not. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? Unless it has a shava pruta, there is no kiddushin. V'amar Shmuel chayshinan. According to Shmuel, even in that case, we're chayshish that perhaps elsewhere it's worth more. Like Kasha, the answer is like we said a minute ago: haba kedushay vadai, haba kedushay safik. If you want to make a suffix, fine. I understand that even if it's not worth a pruta, there's a suffix kedushin, but he was talking about a kedushin vadai. And for that, you have to appraise it and figure out that it's certainly a pruta. Another story, Hau Gavra, the Aglish Ba'avna de Kuch. This fellow was Mekadosh and Isha, using some bluish, blackish, marble-colored stone. Yosef Rav Chizda become a sharle. So Rav Chizda is sitting down and trying to figure out how much it's worth. If it has a shava pruta, then we're good. V'loy, otherwise loy. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? So Rashi explains that actually this case was a bit more complicated than the previous case. Ruvain was Mekadosh with this stone, whose value was questionable, right? Then Shimon came along, another fellow, and it was Mekadosh outright. Question is, whose Kiddushin takes effect? It depends. If the first fellow was Mekadosh with a Shavar Pruta, then his is a Kiddushin, and there's no need to worry about Shimon, right? So he's trying to figure out which one was a Shavar, whether her stone qualified. Asks the Gemara, now just because Ruvain's stone was not worth a Pruta, you can just discount what he did, and she can stay on with Shimon. Shmuel told us, you never know. Answers the Gemara of Chizah like the Shmuel of Chizah doesn't hold like Shmuel. It has to have a Shavar Pruta in this location, otherwise it's worthless. And in this case, it seems like he decided that, in fact, it did not have the value of pruta, therefore she can stay on with Shimon. Amrle Ime. So her mother, who apparently preferred Ruvain as a son-in-law, she told Rav Chizda, what do you mean? How could you just discount Ruvain's Kiddushin? I happen to know that on Sunday, that day, the kitchen that he was Mekadosh with that item, Hava B'Shavar Pruta, was worth a Shavar Pruta then. True, now it went down in value. At that point, I happened to know it was worth the required minimum, shavius. Omar Allah, so he responds to her with negation, Lav Kol Kiminach, it's not within your ability, the Asras La Basra, to make her Asr on Shimei. You have no Ne'emonos, you're not, Adam. I don't need to take your word for it, and if in my eyes today it doesn't have the required value, have a nice day. And he compared it to a different story. Lav Hainu the Yehudis. Isn't this similar to the case of a woman by the name of Yehudis who was Dvisu, the wife of Rabbi Yehuda, the Havi Latzar Leda, she was experiencing very significant labor pains, and Rashi says she had twins, 2 sets of twins actually, different times. Amrle, so due to her distress, she addressed her husband Rabbi Yehuda, and she says, look, Amrli Aim, you should know, I never told you a secret. My mother told me, Kabil Beich Avuch Kedushe Kezutrus. My mother told me that your father, meaning, she was speaking about herself, that her father was Mekabel Kiddushin, accepted Kiddushin on her behalf when you were young. So basically, you're married to somebody else and you can't stay on with Rabbi Yehuda. Therefore, I'll be free of this whole, no more kids. This is what she related to her husband. Amrullah, he responded, Lav Kol Kimina, the Imeich, it is not within the ability or the power of your mother, the Asr Sleich Eluvai, to make your Asr on me. She has no Ne'emanas. There's no Ne'emanas there. So likewise, in our case, the Isha is not Ne'eman to speak about her daughter's Kiddushin. Amrullah Rabban Rav Chisda. So the Chachamim responded to Rav Chisda, who was discounting Ruvain's Kiddushin because his rock did not have the required value. Amai, why are you just doing away with that? There are rumors that there are Edom in some faraway place called Idis, the Yadi, who have that information, the Bahu Yoima have a Pruta, that in fact can confirm that this item was worth a Pruta on Sunday when he did the Kiddush. How could you not reckon with that information? And Taisus explains. Well, the Gemara can mean one of 3 things. The Gemara cannot mean that we should just be concerned that perhaps there are Edom that have that information. Because he says, Taisus says, there's no end in sight if you're always going to be worried about all kinds of unknowns. That can't be the svara of the Gemara. And likewise, Taisus says, the Gemara cannot mean that we happen to know that there are Edom that have that information. Because in that case, Taisus says, it would be appropriate to be machmir. Rather, says Taisus, what it means is like this. Chachamim came to Rav Chisda and says, there are Edom, meaning there is a koil, there are rumors about the presence of Edom, about the existence of witnesses in Idis who know about the item being worth a shavar pruta. Is that not enough to raise flags and concerns here? Says the Gemara, no. Hash to me, listen, come on. Well, are they here? No. Currently they're not here. We don't have to reckon with unknowns. Lav Hainu de Rabbi Chanina. Isn't that similar to Rabbi Chanina's case? There was a story in the Gemara Ksubais about the daughters of Shmuel were taken into captivity. They came back and they walked into the Beis Medrash and they said, we were taken, we were kidnapped, but we're okay. We're untouched by the captives. We're still tahir. And the halacha is that we apply the concept of pesha hasar, pesha hitter. If you sort of get yourself into trouble and get yourself out of trouble, pesha asar, they presented the fact that they got kidnapped, and they followed with that claim of tahira. So it's either you believe all or nothing, right? That's the concept behind pesha asar. But the question was that the Chachamim asked Rabbi Chanina, who was mated those women to marry a kohen. Well, there are Edom in Medina Sayyam out in the distance who can come and tell us that they were kidnapped. So we don't need we no longer need them to come and inform us. We have that information independent of their concession. So the Gemara responded, Rav Chanina responded with a similar response as Rav Chisda in our Gemara. He says, the Rav Chanina edeh besat isatan. Just because we have Edom somewhere in Rashi says Issasan is the Ruach Tzefain is somewhere in the north, by the northerly wind. It's just an expression, basically some faraway place. There are Edom Vete Aser that can generate Isra on these women. They're not here. Forget about them. right? So same thing in our story. Just because there are rumors about Edom knowing the the value of the rock and etc., we don't have to incorporate that into our equation. So basically, Rav Chizda, upon determining that the item used by Ruvain was worthless, paskin that she can stay on with Shimon, the second husband, who was Mekadesher after that episode with Ruvain. But Abaye v'Rava l'isfiru lo Rav Chizda. Abaye v'Rava disagreed with Rav Chizda's conclusion. Why? We have to reckon with the possibility that Edom have that information, because it's rumored that it is so. You can't compare it to the case of the daughters of Shmuel who were kidnapped, imikilu b'shvuyers, because the Chachamim applied leniencies to a kidnapped woman, because there's reason to believe that she protected herself from interacting with her captor. The benavlo nafshel gabi shavoy, she makes herself undignified and unattractive to this captor, and therefore there's more reason to believe than not that she was protected. Nekel be'eshes ish, is that a reason for us to go easy on the eshes ish, such as in our case? And therefore they disagreed. We have to have that concern. We have to reckon with that possibility that in fact Reuben's Kiddushin was valid. Ishtar, in fact, Ishtar mahi mishpacha bisura. So this woman who had stayed on with Shimon and had a family, there were some remnants of that family in the town of Sura. Besura, Pirshu Rabbanon Minon, the Rabbanon kept their distance from that family. Not because of Shmuel's opinion that any time an item is used, whether it's worth a pruta or less, you have to be concerned about the possibility that it might be worth a pruta. No, that wasn't their rationale for keeping away from this family. That wasn't the issue. Rather, they held like Abaye v'Rava that typically you wouldn't have any reason to believe that this item is worth a pruta, but here it was rumored to be so. It was rumored that there were Edom that knew about the value, and in fact that it was a pruta. So therefore, Chachamim opted to keep away from that family. Okay, so in summary, one is Mekadesh and Isha with an item that doesn't have Shava Pruta. Says Shmuel, there's always a concern that perhaps it's worth more elsewhere, and therefore it's a Safek Kiddushin. But for a Kiddushi Vadai, you have to have a confirmed Pruta, of course. And then we went on to the story with the Avna, the Kuchler of Chizda, negated that Kiddushin by Ruvain, and he allowed her to stay with Shimon. He didn't hold of Shmuel. And not only that, he didn't reckon with the possibility, with the kail, this rumor, that in fact there are Edom. So he ignored the mother, right? And then he said she doesn't have ne'amanas. He brought some rayas, and even the kail about the possible Edom, he did away with that as well, and the other Chachamim disagreed with that point. Continues the Gemara. There was a fellow, the Agdish b'shotisa da Asa. He was Mekadesh and Isha with a branch of Asa, a Hadassim branch, b'shuk out in the street, which is inappropriate, informal, off the cuff, Kiddushin. Sholcha Rav Acha bar Huna kamed Rav Yosef. So Rav Acha bar Huna posed the question. He sent the question to Rav Yosef, Kai Gavna Mai. What would you say, about such a Kiddushin with a Hadas branch? Is it a valid Kiddushin? Does it have the value needed? Shalach lei. So he responded, well, you think it's just a question of worth and value? You have bigger trouble on your hands. Nagdei Kira. First of all, this fellow should get Malkis midrabanan, based on Rav's halacha. He deserves a punishment for behaving in this way. That's number one. And if she's to marry somebody else, she's required to have a get from this fellow, based on Shmuel's concept. You never know. You never know how much it's worth elsewhere. True, in this place perhaps doesn't have a Shabbat Pruta, but you never know. So a get is required. So you thought it was just a question of Kiddushin, no Kiddushin? Well, that's one question. But on top of that, this fellow needs to be punished. He needs to be taught a lesson. Why? The Rav would apply Malkus Midrabanan in the following situations. Where a person exhibited lack of tznius, etc., etc. Number one, al mekadesh b'shukah. If one does kiddushin out in the street, in an informal setting, it's inappropriate, and he's deserving of malchus. Al mekadesh b'biyah. Or if one chooses to be mekadesh an isha using the biyah method, although it's allowed minat Torah, but it's not something that we advocate, it's not appropriate, and therefore malchus is in place. If a person chooses to mekadesh an isha without prior arrangement, just walks over to the isha out of the blue, boom, you're mekadesh to me. There's a lack of tznius. It's not appropriate. Or if a person decides to mevatel a get, which he sent to his wife. Now Rashi says, we're speaking that he sent a get with his shliach. And he runs after the shliach and says, you know what? I'm having second thoughts. I want to nullify the get. And the concern is that perhaps the shliach will proceed and deliver the get. And she'll be totally in the dark. She'll think the get is valid. She'll go remarry. And it creates a mess. Taisus disagrees with Rashi. He says, what do you mean? Why would the shliach continue? Proceed with delivering the get once he knows it was batal? So he learns that actually, it's based on the Gemara Gittin, which we learned, that you're not really supposed to be mevatel a get from a distance, right? Without the shliach knowing that it was batal. But the Gemara does say that b'di'evet, if he was mevatel, even at a distance, so he sent to get away, and then he was mevatel where he is, without letting the shliach know, according to one shita, the bittul takes effect. So now the shliach has no clue. He proceeds, he gives the isha the get, she remarries, and that's really a mess. Okay, so that's deserving of punishment. Or if a person makes a moidah is a situation where he knows he's going to be forced to give a get. So he has an appointment with the Bezdin tomorrow, Monday. They're going to force him to give a get, which is required up halacha, right? This fellow, what does he do to preempt it? Sunday night, he walks over to two close friends. He says, look, I'm going to make advance notice right now. I'm going to inform you, I'm going to declare ahead of time that tomorrow's get is batal. Be moiser moidah. So the Mefarshim point out that even though we are very careful, we proceed with a get, we require the husband to make that counter declaration and say, look, I'm now being mevatel any moidah that I may have made. So halachically speaking, strictly legally speaking, the get is kosher, but this gives him, grounds and basis for spreading false rumors and being moitzi las, Rashi says, and getting her into trouble. People might have heard about the maidah and not about the middle maidah, and therefore he should get malchus for doing so. What else is on this happy list? If a person distresses and strikes at the messenger coming from the Bezdin to summon him to a din Torah, if a person disregards a shamta, which is a form of cherem, and lets it sit on him for 30 days without going to remove it. And finally we have a son-in-law who lives at his father-in-law's home, which might stir up some inappropriateness with his mother-in-law. So that completes our list. Individuals who are deserving of malchus d'Rabbanan. Asks the Gemara, the Dayrian. Apparently it's only because he's living there permanently. Then we have a concern, the chalif loy, but if he's just passing by, not a problem? Really? There was a story with a son-in-law. The chalif abava de vechamu. He merely passed by the entranceway of his, in-laws. V'nagdi Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes gave him malchus. Answers the Gemara. Hahu meidam havas daimo cham seminei. That was a situation where his mother-in-law was suspected already of having some inappropriate behavior with this fellow, and therefore he was meant to keep far, far away. Even this was considered an infraction and playing with fire. The Gemara concludes that Nahardoi Amri, that the Bnei Yeshiva Nahardoi had a different version of Rav's approach to things. Bekulu loiman gid Rav. Actually, they disagreed. For most of these infractions, Rav did not come down so hard and apply malchus, only on one of them. Ella al de mekalesh bebia, only a person who was guilty of sort of doubling up his inappropriateness. Ella al de mekalesh bebia beloy shiduche. This fellow did a double infraction. He was mekalesh and isha with bia, which is one strike, and it was done below shiduche without previous arrangement, which is a double strike. That's really excessively inappropriate, and therefore Malchus is applied. You could Amri, somehow a different version of their opinion of Rav. Even if it was Bia with Shidduchim, Rav was very unhappy and would apply Malchus, because of the Pritzus factor. Continues the Gemara. How gavra the Kaddish b'tzifsa da'asa? So this fellow was Makadosh and Isha, once again with Hadassim. Hadassim seem to be very popular today, so he used a Hadas mat, a mat made of Hadassim. Okay? Amrulay said he gave it to the Isha, thinking that it works as Kiddushin. So, the people, they turned to him, how do you get away with such a cheap thing? It doesn't even have a shavar pruta. Amrulay says, well, surprise, surprise. You think I meant the mat? Oh, wait till you hear what's going on inside. Tigdush ba'arba zuzi dizba. There are coins inside, 4 coins. That's what she'll have for Kiddushin. Okay, shaklasa, so she held on to it. She didn't, drop it. She had already taken it, right, when he gave it to her, but now she held on to it. She kept it, vishtika, in silence. She didn't respond, nor yay nor nay. She didn't say anything. Okay. Question is that a sign of acceptance or, disregard? This silence came at a wrong time. He had already given her the Kiddushin, which turned out to be money, right? So at the time when he actually transferred it to her, she had no clue that it's going to be a Kiddushin. She saw it as just a worthless piece of, whatever. So the shtika came later, once she already had it in her possession. Now he informed her about the surprise gift, and now she responded with silence. That doesn't indicate anything. A shtika, a silence, which comes after the transfer of the money, lav klumi, is no indication at all whatsoever of acceptance. I didn't accept your Kiddushin. When you gave it to me, it was a worthless piece of branch. I wasn't taking it as a Kiddushin. Her das, her mindset wasn't for the sake of Kiddushin. So even though it turns out that it was valuable, okay, who says I want to take it as a Kiddushin? Right, so, if as he's giving it to her, let's say, like today, we take a ring, we say, Arayat Mekudeshesli. She doesn't respond. She doesn't need to respond. There's no need for her to go and say, yeah, okay, I'm being Mekadesh to you. Like Shtika Kaida. Her silence is silent admission to his declaration of Arayat Mekudeshesli. That's fine, because he's doing it as he's giving her that ring, which has value, which is meant for Kiddushin. But in this case, what he gave her at the time didn't appear like something of value. And that's what she accepted with silence. But now it's too late to consider her silence as a sign of acceptance. That's Rava's opinion. So she's not Mekudesh. Amar Rava B'na Aminillah, how do I know this in fact is true? That shtika, which comes later, is no indication whatsoever of Kiddushin, the Sanya. Amar La, we have a brisa. Amar La kinsi sela zuvi bikot. He takes his sela, hands it to the Isha, for safekeeping. Please look after it for me. Not for Kiddushin, for safekeeping. Once she has it in her hands, he says, oh great deal now. His kashili boy. I'd like that to be used for Kiddushin money. Are you okay with that? B'shas matan mois, if he said it as he was giving it to her initially, mukudeshes, it's a valid Kiddushin. But la'achar matan mois, if he says it only after he already gave it to her, l'shem pikadain, well, it depends. Ratasa, if she wants the Kiddushin, Mekudeshes, then it works. Loi Ratzasa, but otherwise, Eina Mekudeshes doesn't work. Now, what is the definition of Ratzasa and Loi Ratzasa? My Ratzasa, my Loi Ratzasa. Ilay, shall we say Ratzasa means the Amr in? She said, sure, 100%. Great deal. And Loi Ratzasa means the Amr Loi, she said no. She turned him down. So 1 second. Machlal the ratio. So going back to the beginning of the Brisa. As he's giving her the coin, b'shas matan mois, we say, she's always mekudeshes in all circumstances. Machlal the reisha, ki amra, loy. Even if she yelling and screaming, she say, no, I don't want it. Now we have a Kiddushin. The Kiddushin takes effect. Amai, how? Why? If amra loy, she's clearly refusing the Kiddushin. She's clearly turning him down. How could the Brisa say, well, b'shas matan mois, while the money is being handed to her, it always works. Always? Even if she's yelling and screaming, no? So that can't be what the Brisa meant. Ela lav, so it must be like this. When we say Ratzasa da Amrain, it means that she's saying yes. Loy Ratzasa means she did not indicate acceptance. She didn't say okay. She didn't say yes. The Ishtika, she remained silent. She responded with a deafening silence. The Ishtika Mishtika. And therefore the Brisa says, look, it depends when it happens. If this occurs as he's handing her the money, l'shem kiddushin. So initially he says, I have a pikadon. But he says, actually, let's use it for kiddushin, and he's giving it to her right then. So whether she says okay, or whether she remains silent, it's deemed an acceptance. It's considered a haskama, and it's a kiddushin. Whereas in case number 2, when he already gave her the money, l'shem pikadon, and then he switched his intention. He switched the program on her. He says, it's for kiddushin. Then the Brisa says, look, it all depends how she responds. If she reacted with a yes, fine. If she responds with shtika, she's just ignoring him. So we can conclude from here that in fact shtika l'achar matan mois loy klumhi. Silence, which comes after the fact, is worthless. That supports my shita, says Rava. Likewise, in the case of the Hadassim mat, which turned up some money inside, doesn't matter. It's too late. Because she did not indicate that she's going along with his plan as the money was given to her. It only happened later, once she had it. So she doesn't react. She's not just ignoring his proposal because it wasn't said as he was giving her to the money. So she's not committed to that proposal at all. Ask the Gemara 1 second. How can you compare our story with the mat, with the hidden treasure, to the story of the Brisa with the pikadon? Big difference. Kashuba bepum nahara. The Chachamim in the town of Pum Nahara had some difficulty understanding this equation presented by Rav. And they were quoting, this wasn't their thing, they were quoting Mishmei in the name of Rav Huna Breder Rishu. Midami, how do you compare the two instances? In the Brisa's case, her deafening silence after the fact makes sense. There is a reason why she didn't just, simply toss it back into his face. Hasan b'teres pikadon yavinuni Allah. Initially he gave it to her as a pikadon. She took responsibility. She was willing to take responsibility to safeguard, to look over his item. Look after his item, right? So she committed herself as a shamer. She's responsible for it. So she was just trying to be responsible. Savra, she figures, Isha dina lahu umitbari. Umitbadi. She says, look, I know this fellow's playing games. He's suddenly switching tracks on me. He's switching the program. He's turning it into kiddushin, but I have no choice right now. I'm not just going to throw it back. Because if it breaks or it gets lost, who's going to have to pay? I'm going to have to pay. Mechayav, because I've already accepted it as a pikadon. I have to look after it. So that explains why she just, responded timidly, and did not react in any way. But in no way is that an indication of acceptance. And you're right, she's not Mekudesh. But in our story, with the Hadas mat containing that hidden treasure, Hacha b'teres kiddushin yavinu ni'ala. Here, there was no switching programs. Initially, when he gave it to her, he said l'shem kiddushin, right? Now, at the time, nobody took it seriously because it didn't appear like anything of value that has the ability to make kiddushin. But now, once it's in her hands, and he informs her of the hidden treasure inside, why is she holding on to it? Why is she holding on to it? If she in fact is not interested, lish dinu. She should simply toss it away to indicate her displeasure, her disinterest in him. The fact that she's holding on to it perhaps tells us something about her intentions, that she's interested in him. So you can't compare the two stories. Parach Rav Achai. So Rav Achai responded to this question in defense of Rava. Atukula Nashir Dina community, think all women are experts in halacha? They're big scholars? Hachinami Savra, even in our case with the mat that turned up that treasure, she's thinking, Hachinami Savra, Isha Dinalu, if I dare throw this thing away, Umitbri, and it's going to break and be damaged, I'm going to be responsible for it. for the lost mat, for the broken mat, lost coins. So her retaining that mat is in no way going to serve as an indication of going along with his plans. And therefore, we discount the whole Kiddushin. Sholcha Rav Acha bar Rav. So he sent this question to Kamed Ravina. What would happen in such a case with this mat, with this discovered treasure? So he says like this. We over here haven't heard anything directly or indirectly from Huna bar Yeshua. Basically, this distinction between the case in the Brisa to the case of the mat, we haven't really come up with a real distinction. And therefore, just like in the case of the Brisa, the belated silence means nothing, the same thing here. Aton, the Shmiel Lechu, but apparently you, who have heard this distinction, Chushullah, yeah. So it makes sense that you should be choishish. You should be concerned with that svara, that distinction, which pretty much means, as Rashi says, atzrucho gita. So according to you, you have to, in fact, issue a get to this isha. In the story with the hadassim and the coins, because perhaps her belated silence is an indication of acceptance and going along with his kiddushin, and therefore, in order to leave him, she must have a get. Very interesting back and forth. Okay, so in summary, according to Beis, you need a pruta to be mekadosh an isha. According to Abaye, according to Rabbi Yosef, it isn't really a set thing. It's all about today's pruta. So we work with the pruta of today, whereas Abaye says no. There's a reason why the Mishnah mentions the shiur of echad mishmoine b'isher italki, because that's the set value for all time. We must make sure that your pruta today has equivalent value to that pruta described in the Mishnah. Shmuel says a chiddush even less than a shavar pruta can sometimes make an issue. We're concerned about it being worth more elsewhere, and therefore it creates a suffix kiddushin. Others disagree with Shmuel, and in fact Rav Chizda discounted even that possibility that Edom are going to confirm its value. We don't have the Edom, we don't have to worry about the Edom now. Rav had a whole list of individuals who were deserving of Malkus, and we concluded with the story of the discovered treasure within the Hadas mat, which according to Rava did not really generate any concern of a Kiddushin. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.